Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in a woman's life when she stops begging to be chosen, and that moment changes everything. Because the second she detaches from inconsistency, from uncertainty, from anyone who doesn't match her effort, she becomes the one he can't stop thinking about, the one he fears losing, the one he suddenly realizes he should have treated better. You're about to discover why a woman who chooses her peace over his potential becomes the most irresistible force he's ever encountered. So listen closely, because this shift is exactly what turns the tables in your favor. When a woman finally realizes that her peace is more valuable than someone's potential, everything about her energy changes, not because she becomes colder, but because she becomes clearer. And clarity is magnetic. You see, men are drawn to a woman who knows how to detach, not because she plays games, not because she withholds affection, but because she refuses to abandon herself in the pursuit of someone else. That kind of presence, that kind of self-possession, awakens something powerful in a man: respect, desire, and a fear of losing her that he's never felt before. Detachment is not silence. It is not ignoring him. It's not pretending you don't care. Detachment is the quiet confidence of someone who knows her worth so deeply that she will not chase, negotiate, or fight for a place in someone's life, because she already knows. If he wants to be there, he will make room. And if he doesn't, she will not shrink herself trying to convince him. She simply continues forward with grace. That energy is irresistible. When a woman detaches, she stops responding from fear and starts responding from power. Fear says, I have to hold on or he will leave. Power says, if he leaves, then he wasn't mine. Fear says, I need to prove myself. Power says, I already know who I am. A woman who detaches is not empty. She is full of her own life, her own standards, her own goals, her own self-respect. And that fullness creates a gravitational pull that a man cannot ignore. Because here is the truth: men are not afraid of a woman who needs them. They are afraid of the woman who doesn't. They are afraid of the woman whose world does not revolve around their validation. They are afraid because she cannot be manipulated with uncertainty, cannot be controlled with breadcrumbs, cannot be impressed with minimal effort. A woman who detaches makes a man step up or step aside. When you detach, you stop overanalyzing every text, every pause, every fluctuation in his tone. You stop molding yourself to keep him comfortable. You stop sacrificing your boundaries for the illusion of connection. Instead, you choose yourself. And choosing yourself is the boldest form of attraction there is. It shows that your primary relationship is with your own self-worth, and any man who wants a seat at your table must come correct. Men are captivated by women who carry themselves with this kind of freedom. Freedom from obsession, freedom from outcome, freedom from needing the relationship more than the relationship needs them. This freedom is not just alluring, it creates curiosity. He starts wondering why you're not anxiously waiting for him. He starts questioning why your mood isn't tied to his attention. He starts realizing that you are a woman with her own life, her own priorities, her own emotional world that doesn't hinge on his approval. And men pursue what they cannot automatically have. Detachment creates a shift. Suddenly he begins to put in more effort. He texts first. He plans. He follows up. He notices when you withdraw your emotional labor. He feels the difference between your warmth and your absence. And he does not want to lose that warmth. Because detachment doesn't make you distant. It makes you discerning. You're still kind, still loving, still open, but you're no longer available to things that do not meet your standards. Every high-value woman understands that emotional freedom is the ultimate leverage in romantic connection. When you detach, you stop clinging to fantasy and start observing reality. You start paying attention to what he does, not what he promises. You start valuing consistency over chemistry. You start seeing red flags clearly because you are no longer blinded by the fear of losing him. And this clarity protects you from heartbreak, confusion, and emotional chaos. Men admire women who can walk away gracefully, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with calm certainty, because that tells him you were there by choice, not desperation, and anything given freely becomes more valuable. Men don't fall for women who try to prove their worth. They fall for women who already know it. When a woman detaches, she sends one silent message that changes everything. I want you, but I don't need you. Needing creates pressure. Wanting creates desire. But detachment? Detachment creates space. Space for him to rise for her, to pursue her, to invest in her, to claim her with confidence rather than convenience. Men commit to women who inspire them to be better, not women who beg them to. A woman who detaches inspires a man to elevate himself because her energy tells him she will not settle for mediocrity. When you detach, you reclaim your emotional power. You stop giving him the ability to dictate your mood, your day, your confidence. You stop measuring your worth by how he feels about you. You stop hoping he chooses you and start choosing yourself. And when a man sees a woman choosing herself, he suddenly realizes he could lose her. That realization hits harder than any argument, any ultimatum, any attempt to convince him. Loss wakes him up. Detachment makes him see the value that was always there. But detachment is not a strategy, it's a lifestyle. It means you have a full life outside of love. You have passions, friendships, dreams, ambition. You have a world that existed before him and will exist after him. That is what makes you powerful. That is what makes you unforgettable. And that is what makes a man hold on tighter, not because you demanded it, but because he feels privileged to be part of your life. Men are drawn to women who don't negotiate their boundaries, women who say no without explaining, women who speak up without fear, women who walk away when their needs are dismissed. That kind of self-respect is intoxicating. It shows him that your heart is valuable, your time is valuable, your presence is valuable, and men fight for what is valuable. When you detach, you stop chasing closure and start creating it. You stop needing reassurance and start giving it to yourself. You stop trying to change him and start recognizing that his actions already reveal the truth. You no longer wait for someone to treat you right, you treat yourself right. And when a man sees that, he either rises to meet you or he loses you. Either way, you win. Detachment brings you back to yourself, back to your standards, back to your intuition, back to your strength. It allows you to love without losing yourself, give without overextending, connect without clinging, and that balance, love with boundaries, warmth with backbone, openness with independence, is the most attractive thing a woman can embody. Men are extremely attracted to women who detach because those women are whole. They are not searching for completion in someone else. They are not waiting for love to give them purpose. They bring purpose into love. They bring self-respect into love. They bring emotional maturity into love. And that energy transforms everything around them, including the way a man sees them. Detachment makes you unforgettable, not because it makes you distant, but because it makes you rare. A woman who loves deeply yet remains grounded in her own worth is a woman a man does not forget. She is a woman he pursues, respects, fears losing, and ultimately values far beyond the surface. And when a woman reaches that level of self-possession, something profound begins to shift inside her. She stops approaching connections with the fear of, what if I lose him? And starts approaching them with the clarity of, what if he's not the right one? That single shift in perspective changes the entire power dynamic. It takes her out of scarcity and places her firmly into abundance. Because the truth is, a woman who detaches doesn't fear loss, she fears settling. And that fear keeps her standards high, her mind sharp, and her heart safe. As she moves through life with this energy, men feel it instantly. They can sense when a woman values herself deeply, even before she says a word. It shows in the way she speaks, the way she listens, the way she refuses to accept half effort or half love. There is no bitterness in her, no resentment, no anger. She simply knows what she brings to the table and is not afraid to eat alone if someone else doesn't know how to appreciate it. That kind of emotional independence doesn't just make her attractive, it makes her unforgettable. Men find themselves trying harder around a woman like this. They become more thoughtful, more intentional, more present, not because she demands it, but because she inspires it. Her energy allows only two options, rise or fall away. And a man who genuinely wants her will rise, because he knows that if he doesn't, someone else will. A woman who detaches naturally filters out anyone who is inconsistent, immature, confused, or emotionally unavailable. She does not chase clarity, she expects it. She does not beg for loyalty, she embodies it. She does not cling to potential, she follows reality. And it's in that space of self-trust that she becomes the most attractive version of herself. Not the version trying to win someone over, not the version trying to prove her worth, not the version anxiously overthinking his every action, but the version of herself that is calm, centered, and aligned with her values. A woman living in alignment radiates confidence without trying. She becomes a force, not loud, not aggressive, but quietly powerful. That quiet power is precisely what captures a man's attention. When she detaches, she stops seeing rejection as a reflection of her worth and starts seeing it as redirection. She understands that anyone who walks away was not meant to stay. Anyone who pulls back is making space for someone better. Anyone who fails to see her value is simply not her person. This mindset frees her from emotional chaos and brings her into emotional clarity. And this clarity shapes every interaction she has with men, because a woman who detaches no longer entertains confusion. She no longer tolerates mixed signals. She no longer accepts emotional crumbs. She no longer gives chances to someone who has not earned them. Instead, she uses her intuition as her guide. She pays attention to actions, not excuses. She trusts patterns, not promises. She honors her boundaries, not her fears. And this level of self-honoring creates a presence that demands respect. Men are captivated by women who move with this sense of self. They feel a challenge, not the toxic kind that plays games, but the healthy kind that calls them to show up fully. They feel excitement, not because she's hard to get, but because she's selective. They feel admiration, not because she withholds affection, but because her affection feels meaningful, not desperate. Men value what they must earn, and a woman who detaches makes her love something worth earning. And when a man realizes she is not afraid to walk away, something awakens inside him, a deeper awareness, a deeper respect, a deeper desire. He stops taking her for granted because he knows she's not anchored to him. He stops giving bare minimum effort because he knows she will not tolerate it. He stops assuming she'll always be there because she's already shown him she won't stay where she's not valued. Her detachment becomes the mirror that reveals his true intentions. For the man who is right for her, this becomes the turning point. The moment he decides to step up, to match her energy, to invest more deeply. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. He recognizes that her life is full. He recognizes that her standards are real. He recognizes that her love is not casual. And he recognizes that losing a woman like her would be a mistake he would regret. The right man is not intimidated by her detachment. He is moved by it. But the beauty of a woman who detaches is this: she doesn't detach to get a reaction. She detaches because her soul demands peace, because her heart deserves reciprocity, because her life is too valuable to waste on uncertainty. And this authenticity is what makes her stand out from every other woman who tries to use detachment as a strategy. A woman who truly detaches is not pretending. She genuinely means it. She truly chooses herself. She fully trusts that the right person will meet her where she is. She doesn't force connections. She doesn't chase answers. She doesn't compete for attention. She understands that anything she has to fight for will drain her. Anything she has to convince someone of will disappoint her. Anything she has to beg for will eventually break her. So she doesn't beg. She doesn't plead. She doesn't cling. She simply releases what doesn't align. And what happens when she releases? She creates space. And in that space, everything shifts. Her confidence returns, her glow returns, her joy returns, her freedom returns. She becomes more attractive, not because she is trying to be, but because she is honoring her highest self. A woman aligned with her highest self is irresistible. Men sense this alignment long before they can explain it. They feel it in her presence, they notice it in her calm, they admire it in her discipline, they respect it in her boundaries, and they fear losing it because they know it is rare. A woman who detaches doesn't fall for words, she watches consistency. She doesn't settle for promises, she requires action. She doesn't lose herself in love, she expands herself through it. And a man who experiences this kind of woman begins to understand that she is not like anyone else. She is not replaceable. She is not forgettable. She is not temporary. She is a woman whose value is not defined by how much she gives, but by how deep. She honors herself. This is why detachment is so attractive. It represents emotional maturity. It represents strength. It represents clarity. And it represents a level of self-love that a man cannot help but respect. Because at the end of the day, a woman who detaches is not saying, I don't care. She is saying, I care too much about myself to stay where I am not fully chosen. And that, more than anything, is what draws men to her, deeply, passionately, and wholeheartedly. And when a woman reaches this level of inner alignment, something astonishing begins to take place, not just within her, but around her. Her interactions shift, her relationships shift, and even the way she carries herself shifts. She moves with a calm certainty that can't be shaken by mixed signals or inconsistent behavior. She stops second-guessing herself because she finally realizes her intuition has always been her greatest protector. And that realization strengthens her ability to detach even further, not as a defensive mechanism, but as a declaration of self-respect. She begins to understand that her time is valuable, her energy is valuable, her presence is valuable. She no longer pours herself into situations that offer her nothing in return. She no longer tries to convince someone of her worth, because she understands that the right man will never need persuasion, and this quiet confidence becomes a kind of emotional armor, soft but impenetrable, gentle but undeniable. It's the kind of emotional strength that draws a man in deeper, because he feels the difference between a woman who needs him and a woman who chooses him. This difference creates an irresistible pull. A man knows when he's dealing with a woman who does not rely on his attention to feel whole. She doesn't crumble when he pulls back. She doesn't panic when communication slows. She doesn't spiral into insecurity. She observes, she acknowledges, and she adjusts. That ability to adjust, to move forward without hesitation, makes her more attractive than any physical trait ever could. Because the truth is, men do not fall for a woman who loses herself for them. They fall for the woman who remains herself regardless of them. They fall for the woman who doesn't collapse under emotional pressure. They fall for the woman with a strong identity, strong purpose, and strong boundaries. They fall for the woman who refuses to be emotionally dependent on someone who hasn't shown consistency. And here is what most women don't realize. Detachment doesn't just strengthen her, it reveals the truth about him. When she stops overgiving, she sees whether he steps up or slips away. When she stops initiating, she sees whether he values her enough to pursue. When she stops soothing his ego, she sees whether he cares enough to invest emotionally. Detachment is the great revealer, because without the noise of her effort, she can hear the truth of his. And that truth empowers her. It allows her to make decisions from clarity, not confusion, from strength, not fear, from self-worth, not desperation. She begins to understand that rejection is never a reflection of her inadequacy, but of misalignment. She stops taking things personally because she knows she brings emotional value, loyalty, authenticity, and depth, qualities that not every man is ready to receive. And instead of trying to convince him, she simply detaches with grace. That grace is what mesmerizes him. She doesn't slam doors. She doesn't threaten. She doesn't chase. She doesn't demand explanations. She simply lets the situation reveal itself and then moves accordingly. And men respect this more than they will ever admit. They respect a woman who doesn't lose control. They respect a woman who can love without losing herself. They respect a woman who can say, I'm here if you're ready to show up, but I won't wait. And it's in that moment, when she stops waiting, that he begins to feel everything differently. He begins to feel her absence. He begins to feel her value. He begins to feel the depth she brought into his life without ever needing to shout it. Her detachment allows him to experience what life feels like without her warmth, her presence, and her emotional support. And for many men, that realization becomes a turning point. But whether he wakes up or not, she remains centered. Because detachment has taught her that she does not lose people, she discovers who they truly are. It's taught her that chasing someone never leads to security. It's taught her that forcing connection only delays heartbreak. And it's taught her that choosing herself will always lead her exactly where she needs to be. She begins to set standards that are no longer negotiable. Not because she is stubborn, but because she finally knows what she deserves. She refuses to tolerate half-hearted commitment, emotional inconsistency, or conditional affection. She no longer entertains situations that drain her spirit or question her worth. Instead, she seeks alignment, connections where effort is mutual, respect is natural, and affection flows consistently. This level of emotional discipline makes her rare, and rarity is attractive. Men gravitate toward women who don't cling, women who don't fear solitude, women who can enjoy their own company, women whose lives are already full, meaningful, and vibrant. A man feels privileged, not entitled, to be part of her world. And that sense of privilege transforms the way he treats her. He stops assuming, he starts appreciating, he stops taking, he starts giving, he stops delaying, he starts deciding, because he knows she can walk away at any moment, not out of pettiness, but out of self-love. And as she continues to detach, her mindset transforms completely. She no longer asks, "Does he like me?" She asks, "Do I feel honored, respected, and valued?" She no longer wonders, "Is he losing interest?" She wonders, "Is this connection adding to my life?" She no longer thinks, "What if he leaves?" She thinks, "What if I'm meant for something more?" This shift is where her power comes from. And that power creates a presence that men feel on a deep level. It's in her voice, her composure, her calmness, her boundaries, and her emotional freedom. She becomes a woman who is not afraid of endings because she knows every ending is a doorway to alignment. She becomes a woman who is not afraid of time alone because she knows that solitude refines her. She becomes a woman who is not afraid of losing someone because she knows she will never lose herself again. And that is the type of woman men are profoundly attracted to. The woman who is whole on her own. The woman who loves without dependency. The woman who gives without sacrificing herself. The woman who stays soft without being naive. The woman who stays open without being available to everyone. The woman who knows when to lean in and when to let go. Her detachment becomes her strength. Her clarity becomes her filter. Her refusal to settle becomes her protection. And her ability to walk away becomes her superpower. And without ever needing to try, she becomes the kind of woman who leaves a permanent impression on every man who crosses her path. Not because she is perfect, but because she is grounded. Not because she is mysterious, but because she is emotionally free. Not because she is unavailable, but because she is unwilling to betray herself for temporary affection. Men don't just admire women like this, they remember them, they chase them, they commit to them, they respect them, they feel safe with them, they feel challenged by them, they feel inspired by them, and they feel drawn to them in a way that cannot be explained logically because it is something deeper, something primal, something emotional, something spiritual. The woman who detaches becomes the woman he cannot forget, the woman he cannot replace, and the woman he cannot simply walk away from.